Hello, and welcome to Hopeful Conversations brought to you by Robbie's Hope Foundation. I am your host, Kari Eckert. Joining me today is Kevin Kovaleski, Associate Vice President at Arizona State University, here to speak on the topic of college rejection, selection, and the process seniors in high school go through and how to cope with it. Good morning, Kevin. Welcome.
Hey, Kari. It's nice to chat with you.
And please correct me on your name pronunciation, Kevin.
Oh, that's okay. It's Kovaleski. You're very, very close.
So, working at ASU in the office of, associate, what office are you in exactly?
Okay, so we're in the office of the Provost. It's the department that I work for is called Academic Enterprise Communications.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a communications team that does all of the recruitment communications to prospective students. We reach high school students from all over the country, all over the world even, and guide them through the application process and then the admission and the acceptance process at ASU so that they join us for the fall or spring semester.
So what step in the process are students in right now for fall of 2024?
Fall of 2024. That's right. So this year is these years are just continue to throw us curveballs, right? So a lot of families right now are trying to decide where to go to school. There's been a massive change in the FAFSA, which is the federal financial aid system. And students are waiting to hear what their full financial aid offers are at schools across the country that they applied to. And it's a little later than it has been in past years. So they're not only trying to decide where to go, but how they're going to afford it, what those packages are going to look like. So, we're telling our students, hold on tight, and we're helping get everyone through this process. But yeah, so they're making their decisions, and hopefully this fall we'll have yet another wonderful big class that will be joining us.
Has enrollment at ASU been growing?
Yes, it has. So I've been at ASU for about 10 years, and the enrollment's grown just incredibly. We have online students and on-campus students. Over the course of a year, we have about 177,000 students enrolled.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. I always tell people that we have a lot of different campuses. So we have a big school experience. We also have small campuses, medium-sized, urban campuses, suburban campuses. So any given learning community is not 177,000 students.
So when I hear you talk about FAFSA, and I'm saying that wrong, I'm out of touch because my daughter is going to turn 25. So it was a long time ago that we did that process. I hear stress because just of the financial part of sending someone to school or paying for school yourself.
Yeah, it's a stressful experience for families, for parents, for students themselves. We have a large number of students at ASU that rely on some form of financial aid. I think 90% of our students have some
90%.
90% have some form of financial aid. A lot of students are Pell eligible. The wonderful thing about Arizona is if you're Pell eligible, your tuition is covered at our 3 public universities. So that's wonderful, and it really creates pathways for tons of students. But first they need to know about that, which is a communication challenge. And then B, this year, especially while they're waiting for that financial aid determination, they don't yet know that they've got that opportunity to go at a really, really affordable cost.
What makes a person Pell eligible? I don't know that.
Oh, geez. There is an income threshold. This is where you're going to have to edit it because I don't know exactly the income threshold, but it's basically like if you're under $48,000, don't quote me on that. Don't put that in the recording, but it's like family income of under 50K roughly makes you Pell eligible.
And is that a state law for Arizona or is that a national law?
Yeah, Pell is a federal program, so that makes you eligible for federal financial aid. Is Pell eligibility.
Do you have to be a resident in your own state to go to your own state school, or can that you go to a different state?
Yeah, so it's called the Arizona Promise Program. It's a state-funded program that if you are Pell eligible, Arizona residents go with tuition covered. You can, of course, still go out of state with federal financial aid, but usually almost in every case is more expensive to go out of state, even though you're getting some form of financial aid.
And I would imagine most states have something like that, or not most, maybe lots of states have something
Yeah,
like that.
more and more. It's it's wonderful to see states investing in higher education. It runs the gamut, right? A state like Georgia has had their program for years. I think your state, Colorado, has one as well. They all take a different form. ASU adopted theirs a couple years ago. We had at ASU a number of financial aid programs prior to the Arizona Promise program, the Barack Obama Scholars Program, the College Attainment Grant that got that cost for Arizona residents who qualify, very low, if not full tuition coverage. But yeah, states are picking it up.
Okay. So let's take a little step back and talk. Yeah, there's so much.
Yeah.
Like marketing to you probably start marketing to sophomores, freshmen in high school.
We do. There's a couple ways that it happens, right? A student or a family can request information from the university. They can take an SAT, or an ACT, and then we, as a university, all universities purchase lists from these test-taking services, and then we start communicating to students. A mantra that I work on with my team and we've really embraced, and this is hard, right? But to really take a help versus hype approach. We of course want to talk about the fact that we're the number one university for innovation, sustainability, global impact, all these accolades about the university. But at the end of the day, it comes down to that fit for that family. Can they afford it? Is it the right choice for them? Does my child feel safe here? Do they feel like they have people that are going to support them? At the end of the day, those are really the main decision drivers. And so we want to make sure that in our communications, while we are telling students that they have this wonderful opportunity at ASU, and it's a very customizable opportunity for them, we want to make sure that the process is as frictionless as possible so that they get the information they need. We provide them the help that they need in the process. One thing that is really different about a place like ASU, and it's interesting that your topic is called college rejection, right? We've taken a really different approach to this whole conversation, right? We basically say, and this is true of the 3 universities in Arizona, if you qualify to be enrolled, we admit you. We do not artificially cap our enrollments like many schools do. I think there's this false dichotomy of in order to be, a really prestigious place, you've also got to be an exclusive place. And we don't believe that. We believe that you can be a wonderful, we're a top research university. We're in the Association of American Universities. There's only 71 or 2 universities that are research universities in this member organization. You can be an excellent experience for students, an excellent education with Nobel laureates, and be drastically accessible. And that's important for a few things. One, of course, you can actually build a society this way. College is not for everyone, but if you're operating at scale and if you're accepting students at scale, you wind up with a situation that we have, which is 1 in 3 of our students are first generation college students. So first in their family to go to school. That's about 45,000 students. That's double the total enrollment at Harvard. So double the total enrollment at Harvard. So if you think about what institutions are really moving families, if they're executing on their mission and the degree is helping that student, land a job, move their life forward, we're really, moving tens of thousands of families toward, a brighter future, a more economically secure future. So that's one reason why it's important to us. The second reason is, in the purpose of this conversation, it hopefully takes a lot of stress out of the equation for students. There's that societal push, of course, to achieve, right? And get into the best place that you can, but it's kind of a manufactured idea. I mean, if you're talking about, is a school good? What, you're asking yourself, maybe there's 2 sides of that question. It's Is it going to help me advance on my way to a better life, right? Is it going to help me get a job? That's one way to think of, is a school good?
Mm-hmm.
The other way to think about it is it respected in the community, right? Will people respect the fact that I'm going here? Like, will I be proud to say that? And all of that is it's kind of manufactured, right?
Yeah, I've had those conversations with kids over the years of working with high schoolers for the past 5 years, and kids that I really didn't know, but I got to know them because they were involved with Robbie's Hope, and watching them through the process of talking their junior year, like, I'm thinking about this school, I've applied here. And then when they actually declare, and like their language surrounding it, it's really, really interesting. I feel like it's changed significantly just in the past few years. Like, I think COVID and just where young people are at, maybe where we're at as a society. You can even read about in the paper. I'm a big reader. Like, is a college degree worth it? There's a lot of movement there.
Yeah.
But is it, I hear you, just like a match? Like, is it a match for you as a student? Is something.
And that's for some students, that can be a very hard process. Just this week, Kari, I was talking with a friend of mine who I went to high school with, and we were reminiscing for a little bit about our high school. And I had been thinking about this for years. And he has been too, because he said it. I didn't bring it up to him. He said, do you remember when our teacher, when we all decided where to go to college, she had us put where we're going on the chalkboard? And I was like, yeah, I remember that. And he's like, you know what? I was so embarrassed. I refused to do it. He went to a good school. I was like, I felt the exact same way. I was embarrassed about where I chose, because I went to a great university. I went to the University of Delaware. I had an incredible experience. When I was deciding where to go, I remember coming to the realization of like, oh, Delaware's a good match for me. Like, I got into the honors program. My family could afford it. It felt good when I got on campus. I got on campus and somebody remembered my name after they had visited my high school. Like, right. These were the reasons where it felt good to me, but I still had that pressure because we were the quote unquote, smart kids, that we were going to go to these prestigious places. And looking back at it, the places that I had on my list were great schools, but I was kidding myself that I was going to get into them. It's like I didn't work hard enough. And even if I had worked super hard and got those like perfect grades, there were still kids in my class that applied to the same schools, and on paper we looked identical, right? So if you have these schools that are like artificially capping their enrollment, saying being very proud of the fact that they only accept 6%, right? You hear that. They're disqualifying students that are actually qualified. And so, it's just a shame that, myself and my friend carried that really unnecessary shame, right? That
shame.
I mean, it's ridiculous that it's shame, especially when it's like you're going to college, you're moving on with your life, you're going to get a great experience, and you still feel shame. So I reflect on that, and I think about, if I was feeling that way, how were the students that my peers, right, who were not thinking about college, right? For so many of them and around the country, I mean, I can imagine that feels very like you feel invisible to your school, right? Because the school puts their resources, and I had a great school, and I don't want to speak poorly of how they treated any of us, but I can imagine feeling that they felt, well, I'm not cut out for this, so I'm not being invested in, right? I'm not being respected. And I think that's a really significant burden to be putting on young people.
So interesting. And Kevin, you mentioned your age, and I'm 50, and like applying to college back in 1991 was very different. But like, it's 2024, and how a young person today feels like about making their choice, making the match for all the different reasons we select something. I just can only imagine. I remember when my daughter graduated, she graduated in 2017. and she went to an IB school, and she's a smart cookie. And I remember the process of looking at schools. And I did hear a really awesome piece of advice from a president out on the East Coast. And I hear, as a parent, I still hear this, like, and I want other parents to know this, is like, you are riding a tandem bike with your child.
Mm.
Your child needs to be in the front,
Yes.
and they get to pick where that bike is going, the direction. And you get to be in the back, and you just get to help pedal at the same speed that they're going at. That's how a tandem bike works. But as parents, like, you know, I remember back in 1991, I felt a lot of pressure to go to the school that my mom graduated from.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Pressure, and just, it's such a financial commitment, time commitment.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. It's tough.
It's tough.
So yeah, so rejection for kids, because like the acceptance rate.
Yeah, I mean, the parents have an important role to play in this, of course, right? But not just to, like, yes, support your child, right? Ride that backseat tandem bike, but also be ready to celebrate appropriately. And then also, you know, support your student if they are disappointed, right? And so celebrate appropriately. Literally, Kari, last night, a colleague sent me an Instagram reel of this woman kind of making fun of parents who really overly celebrate their kids' acceptance on social media. So you probably have seen these videos, right? Where they're like, the whole family's sitting around the computer, and then the kid jumps up in the air because they got into where they're going to go. You know, I think, I don't mean to judge anyone, but it's like, we need to ask ourselves, like, who are we, like, what are we celebrating by doing things like that? Are we really celebrating our child, or are we celebrating ourselves? You know, I think parents can dip into that. Like, is it really about my kid, or am I really, you know, doing this for my own status, my own reputation in my community? It's an important question. I think I'd like parents to ask themselves. At the same time, you know, we're not going to fix the whole meritocracy system in our country overnight, and, you know, have everyone wake up to the fact that, like, yes, you should just go to a place that you can afford, that fits your lifestyle, that fits your needs, that has the programs you want, and the name is a little less important. We're not going to fix that overnight. So your kids are going to have moments where they're disappointed, right? Where they're ashamed. I don't think I told my parents that, right? So they're going to carry that quietly. And I think it's important for parents to not just be like, oh, it's no big deal, you're going to be fine. Like, it's important to honor feelings, right? And to help them, be there with them. The tandem bike is a nice visual, because it's, you know, you're not driving that experience. You're not telling them how to react to it. You're not telling them how to feel. So honor where they are. And then as they process that, there will be those opportunities for the conversations of, hey, it's not the end of the world. There are other great places that you can go. There's other great things that you can do. You know, I think that's an important role that a parent can play.
Yeah. I keep thinking of you writing back where you're going to go on it was probably a chalkboard back.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Right now it's like a whiteboard or a smart board, where they're using their phones to like text it in.
Yeah.
And also now the schools around here, they write they in the like graduation commencement, like it shows like what everybody is doing.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I understand why schools do it, and we should support kids and be proud of kids and happy for kids. But I remember a student that I was working with, and she had a choice, and she was not proud of her choice. And I kind of coached her through, like, you've decided that's where you're going. And like, even when you say it, the tone of your voice, and like, embrace it, like, be proud of your choice. It's going to be right. You know, it hopefully will be right for you. But how you're portraying it, like the other energy is kind of that you're not happy, that you're not confident.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's tough. And I think, you know, the other piece of advice for for young people who might be listening is it's hard to remember this, but the feelings that you have at the college decision making time, it's temporary, right? It's a temporary moment. It's going to pass. Hopefully you are very confident and happy with where you're going, and that's great. But if you're not, and you're still doing something productive and moving forward, like if you have negative feelings, they're going to pass, and then you're going to get to the school. You're going to get into that experience. You're going to meet incredible people. Every school has people that care about their students, right? So many schools have top faculty that are, master teachers, but also scholars, right? It's going to be incumbent on you as a student to get the most out of wherever you go. And that requires you to put yourself out there, put yourself out of your comfort zone, try new things, try on majors, right? Take electives that might interest you, but like getting involved, meeting those people that are kindred to you, that's on you, and that's a process. And if you do that and you go through that and you connect with your community, that residue of bad feelings about the choice that you made, they quickly disappear. And, people forget. People are not, I think young people now, it's called what is it called? Main character syndrome, right? Where it's like they're the main character of their own movie and everybody's watching them and everybody's looking at them for their next move. Like, that's not really, you're not the center of the world, right?
That's the way it feels, though.
Yeah, but that's the way it feels. Yep.
I like that temporary, and finding your people, sampling, like looking at different, we start asking like 8th graders, what are you going to major in?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, I know. I mean,
I'm 14 years old. I have no idea.
I didn't declare until I was a junior, which I don't necessarily recommend.
But most people declare before they go, right? Now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we have an exploratory track. I think that's so important. A large percentage of college students change their major, right? So that pressure to be like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go here. Like, you can relax a little bit. Like, I think some people have a really clear vision. Those people are lucky, right? I had a friend who, as long as I knew him, wanted to be a doctor. He knew it, and he's a doctor, right? But that's, in my experience, that's the rare person, right? You have to follow your interests. You have to take your interests seriously, and then explore. I mean, there's so much wonderful things. I mean, I became, studied political science, but I didn't go in thinking I was going to do political science and history. I did a history minor, a religious studies minor. By my sophomore year, I just was looking at what courses had I taken. And I was like, oh, I guess I must be interested in these things because I took a lot of classes in them. Maybe I should major in them. So that was my process. But yeah, I think we put a lot of pressure on young people to figure it out way too early. I've got a 5 and a 3-year-old, right? And I hear people say, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? Already. What do you want to be? You do? Oof. Oh, yeah. What do you want to be when you grow up? It's like more, maybe better question. Who do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to have? I love my daughter's answer. It's like she wants to be an astronaut, a veterinarian, a chef, and an artist.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
On campus, like, is there a lot of opportunity for like freshmen and sophomores to get advisement and help, like breaking out of, because if you do declare now, like, I'm going to be in this college and I'm going to be this major coming in as a freshman, or most students do, like, how does a student take a right turn instead of a left turn and try different things? Yeah.
So, young people listening, parents, enforce this. Trust that there are so many people in a college community that really want to help. I'm in meetings with these people every week, right? And they come to me and say, Kevin, how can we communicate better to students that they take action? How do we get them to like raise their hand and say, hey, I want some help. I need some advice. I need to go to office hours. I need to go to, my advisor. Like, communication is not the problem, but we need students to also come to the table and say, hey, I need help. So if you're starting college, if you're about to start college, if you don't find this immediately, right? Like you go to an advising appointment and it wasn't helpful, don't write it off. There's other people. Find your people, find your trusted adults. I think that's extremely important. Find people that care about you, who take an interest in you, and then meet them there, right? Tell them what you're interested in. Tell them what you're going through, and they'll help you. I mean, they will absolutely want to help you. And so those conversations about, I'm thinking about a different major, or I'm not even sure if college is right for me. I'm having trouble, feeling connected to this community. If you find those trusted adults, be it a professor, be it a staff member who works with you if you have a student job, these are people that can connect you to the right people, can have those conversations that can help you navigate, but also know it's super normal. I mean, more than half of college students, I think I said this earlier, like more than half of college students change their major at some point, right? So you might have had this feeling of, I've told everybody in my life that I want to be an engineer. This has been a part of my identity for so long. And now I'm really going to switch gears and not do it. It's not just a decision that is the pivot, but it's like the mindset, it's your reputation. All of these things are bearing on students. But it's still the right thing to do. It's the right thing to, align yourself with the future that you want, and, make it your own, and know that that's a super normal thing that happens for college students everywhere.
Great advice.
Yeah.
And I hear it may not be that first adult that you ask for help that you have a match with, but ask again. Like, you have to advocate for yourself and find your community, find your people.
That's right. Yeah. I hit my stride in college my sophomore year, right? My freshman year, my first year, I was so overprogrammed in high school. I did so many activities that I remember when I got to college, I was like, I don't want to do anything. I want to not get involved. I want to just hang out with my friends and go to class, right? And that year was a transitional year of figuring myself out, figuring out, how I fit within the university community. And then it was sophomore year where I found a professor who my friends were telling me, take this guy, he's great. I took it, I got into it, and he became my first kind of foray into having a trusted adult at the university, right? So it doesn't happen immediately sometimes. Sometimes it does, which is great. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Give yourself that patience. But you've got to ask for help. You've got to raise your hand. And it doesn't need to, and do it early before you, here's another piece of advice. Do it early before you're in a situation where you really need help. If you get in the practice of talking about yourself, introducing yourself, getting to know people when the stakes are a little lower, it's going to be easier when you actually need that help to kind of break that ice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm reflecting back on my college experience, and I don't think I had a trusted adult. And I have 2 degrees, psychology. I remember kind of having a lot of interest in this researcher and behavioral modification. But I had all these voices like, what are you going to do with a psych degree? What are you going to do with a psych degree? And I was like, I don't know. And it was okay to not know, but a little bit of shame in that. I wish I would have put myself out there a little bit more with the adults, with the professionals on campus, because I ended up going and getting another degree that I actually, and I digress. So we share a common individual that we had the opportunity to meet. I learned this from being on your LinkedIn page, but Dr. Murthy, the U.S. Surgeon General.
Yeah. We had a great experience with him. So I'll share you a little bit of the backstory. One of his staff members, it's his engagement chief of staff, is an ASU graduate who I got to know when he was an undergrad. And now he's working with the Surgeon General. The Surgeon General came to ASU to do a He was our commencement speaker last May.
Okay.
And had a really impactful commencement address. And this was right around when he put out his advisory on the epidemic of loneliness. I read that, I kind of went down the rabbit hole of Surgeon General work, what he's done with his career. I read his book, and we really just wanted to get him back to have a mental health conversation with our community. And so, working with his staff member, our alum, we just kind of over the course of a couple months put together what was a really wonderful event where we had about 600 students in attendance, another 400 or 500 watching online, where he sat down and spoke with a current student of ours about her mental health journey, and then about how we in our day-to-day practices can address what he's calling the epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah. And that current student was Miss America.
Yeah.
I just listened to the YouTube clip of the Golden Conversation with Dr. Murthy. And a number of things just grabbed my attention. His comparison of loneliness and isolation to smoking and obesity.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's taking he's taking a public health approach to it, and seeing the health detriments of loneliness. And yeah, it's hard to believe. And I think, of course, COVID accelerated this, but he himself shared that this is something we've been building up to over the years. And it's complicated, right? I mean, it's partially how digitized our world is getting, right? And how especially young people are seeing the pressures of that social media bring, but how isolating that can be as well. It's a weird double-edged sword, right? I mean, we're massively connected, but then we're kind of left with the experience of feeling quite alone with how we react to what we're being exposed to. And it's all happening so fast, right? I mean, even in like, when I think about 10, 20 years ago, something major would happen in the news. So I was a first year freshman on September 11th, right?
Okay.
And so that was a community, like it was my second week of school. Had friends, whose parents weren't accounted for, right? So like we went through a community experience. This was kind of pre-social media, right?
Right.
Students today, and all of us today, right? We're bombarded with news
all the time.
Instantly. Every day there's a new tragedy, right? So because of this exposure, it's like I noticed this in my own life. It's, you almost get to a point where it's like you don't even talk to your family about what's happening.
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise you'd be talking about it all the time. So you wind up not talking about it. So we're all internalizing what we're experiencing. And I think that is contributing to the loneliness too, because all of that hard processing, it's almost like too tiring to bring it up and talk about it because we have our daily lives to live, right? But we're all kind of going through this stuff internally, and that's a form of loneliness, right? And so the Surgeon General talks a lot about really basic things that we can do to kind of get us out of this. And as simple as, check in with each other, right? And what I loved what he said is, when we check in with each other, not only are we telling that person, hey, I see you, I'm thinking about you, but we're reminding ourselves that we have a role to play, right? So that friend I was telling you about that, we had the shared experience about the chalkboard, right? I was checking in on him. And for that moment that we had together this week, that has kind of fueled me a bit and kind of rekindled a friendship that, was on the back burner for a while, and reminded me that he needed me and I needed him, right? That's one little thing that we can do in our daily practice that can help us kind of get out of this funk. And I know that's it's a more important thing than just a funk, but we're all experiencing it.
We all are, yeah, collectively. Checking in. And I think for it, not just for young people, for all of us, it's like we feel like it has to be with so many people. I don't know if that's from social media. Like I have so many friends, so many likes, but instead the Surgeon General, like, how about making it about quality?
That's right.
Like checking in with one person each day or one person this week. I liked that a lot. And then it's just the strength and asking for help. So for kids that are going to be freshmen next fall, or just it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, whether that be at home or on campus, and finding your people, putting yourself out there. Oh goodness.
Not only is it okay, like we want you to ask for help. And I think, even in hearing reflections from current students, who are like, oh, I was ashamed to talk about this, right? That's real. I don't want to dismiss that. There's things that I don't like to talk about, right? But at the same time, trust that the professionals have heard it all, right? And that we want to be helpful for you. Yeah.
You're not alone in your feelings.
That's
You're
right.
not alone in your feelings. Okay, so we end every podcast with the same question.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
What does the world need to hear right now?
Oh, I'm going to borrow something that I think you say. So I was researching, your work, and I loved when you, I forget exactly your messages to students, but one of them stuck with me, and it was, be better than society. And I loved that. I think what we hear in the media, right, is all of the negative. And it leads us to believe that we are lesser than we are. And we all have in our daily lives proof points that there's goodness out there, there's good people out there, there is community. But we are starting to forget that about ourselves. And we're starting to view society by all of the negativity that's out there. So I loved when you said be better than society, because we all have that ability. And if we're all doing that, I think there's a different story that we could be telling about our culture.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for your time today and for joining me on a hopeful conversation. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. And until then, remember, hold on, pain ends.